The void was quiet, too quiet for what was about to happen. That silence stretched like an omen across the cold, dark expanse of Varro 7's outer belt. But then it came, a hum in the darkness, a formation of ships moving with eerie precision, engines pulsing like a war drum. The human fleet had arrived. At the helm of the flagship HFS Vindicator, Captain Marcus Ryland stood with arms crossed, jaw clenched so tightly it ached. His eyes didn't blink as he stared out the massive viewport straight at the enemy. The Zarn were clustered beyond the field of debris that used to be Serac Colony. Now it was just floating metal, scattered limbs and burnt-out domes. Over $100,000, civilians gone, erased like they never existed. No survivors, no warning, no reason. "They're not even reacting," Commander Vela said quietly beside him. Her voice was calm, but her knuckles were pale on the console. Marcus didn't turn. "They're not used to being challenged." The Zarn had never feared humanity. Why would they? Every time they struck, they did so without retaliation. Every human response had been defensive, diplomatic, measured. But Earth had had enough. There was no more time for talks. Not after Serac, not after what they did to his brother. "Fleet reports ready," said Lieutenant Greaves. "Weapons locked, all ships in position." Marcus gave a small nod. "Good. Begin the assault. Target their drives. Don't kill them quick." The bridge lit up in crimson as human weapons came online. Railguns, kinetic torpedoes, beam cannons, all charged and pointed straight into the maw of the Zarn fleet. The first salvo tore through the silence like judgment. The Zarn never saw it coming. Human ships moved like blades, sleek and fast, their attacks coordinated down to milliseconds by fleet AIs. The Zarn ships, grotesque, organic-looking things, with bone-white hulls and squirming appendages, started to rupture under the pressure. Holes peeled apart, internal organs spilled into space. The enemy had no time to react. They scrambled, chaotic, disorganized. The Zarn had fought hundreds of species, always as conquerors. They'd grown soft with victory. They thought humans were slow, emotional, easily broken. They didn't know what humans looked like when they were done playing defense. "Direct hit on their command cruiser," Vela said. "They're in full retreat." Marcus's mouth curled into something between a smile and a snarl. "Not yet, they're not. Push forward, box them in, no mercy." Another Zarn ship tried to escape the encirclement, but 3 Terran corvettes flanked it, cut it off, and blasted it to fragments. For a moment, the battlefield looked like a starfield of fire. Alien shrieks echoed faintly across comm channels as their distress signals bounced back unanswered. "Captain, Admiral Voss is requesting a status update," Greaves said. "Put him through." The Admiral's worn, battle-scarred face appeared on screen. "You've gutted their core force, Ryland. Good work. Sweep their flanks. Leave no survivors unless they surrender. You know what to do." Marcus gave a curt nod. "Yes, sir." The line cut. Marcus turned toward the tactical map. He wasn't smiling anymore. "They killed everyone on Serac," he said, voice low. "Scientists, children, my brother, for what? To test their weapons? They're paying for it now." "Not enough," Vela replied. "Not enough," Marcus said. "Not yet." The Vindicator veered into the thick of the wreckage, weaving between drifting corpses and dying enemy ships. Human drones moved behind them, tagging floating Zarn for collection. A few tried to fire back, but their weapons were sporadic, uncoordinated. They were panicking. Another cruiser exploded under a triple hit. Marcus didn't even flinch. This wasn't war. This was retribution. And humanity had become very, very good at that. "They thought we were weak," he murmured. "That was their first mistake." Vela glanced at him. "And their last." Behind them, what was left of the Zarn fleet scattered in full retreat. What few ships survived the initial onslaught limped away, trailing debris and fluids. The human fleet didn't pursue right away, not yet. First, Marcus wanted them to know they were hunted. "Deploy capture teams," he ordered. "I want prisoners. I want them to see us, to hear us, to understand what they started. And maybe, just maybe, they'd live long enough to carry a message back to the stars." Humanity wasn't afraid anymore. The battlefield still burned in silence. Where once the enemy fleet floated with arrogance and dominance, now there was only wreckage, mangled, splintered, adrift. The glow of human warships illuminated the debris with an eerie glow, like lanterns in a graveyard. Yet inside the HFS Vindicator there was no celebration, just the cold, methodical machinery of vengeance still in motion. Debris fields cleared along the western perimeter. Minimal resistance, Lieutenant Greaves reported. Recovery drones are sweeping for Zarn survivors, Captain. Marcus Ryland nodded slowly. Good. Have containment units standing by. I want them secured, not dissected, not yet. Across the bridge, officers moved with silent urgency. No one smiled, no one laughed. The victory had come too fast, too clean, and everyone felt it. There was no fight, no war cry, no back and forth, just a slaughter. And somewhere deep in his chest, Marcus felt it too. It wasn't enough. They're running, said Commander Vela, watching the real-time tactical map. Small clusters trying to slip into hyperspace. Should we pursue? Not yet, Marcus said. Let them crawl away. Let them think they've escaped. He leaned against the edge of the command console, staring at the carnage before him. Because the second wave's coming. From them? She asked. No, he replied. From us. The first Zarn prisoner was a nightmare to look at, roughly the size of a small horse. Its skin looked like it had been burned into place, dry and cracked, like old bark, shifting with each movement. Its limbs were uneven, bone-like protrusions jutting from different angles. Where eyes should have been, there were glowing slits watching everything without blinking. Marcus stood on the other side of the reinforced interrogation chamber, arms crossed, saying nothing, just watching it. I don't know why you brought that thing back, said Dr. Kian Telford, the ship's exobiologist. It won't talk. Their kind never does. Marcus gave him a glance. I don't want it to talk. I want it to feel. He stepped into the room. The Zarn hissed and thrashed weakly against the magnetic restraints, but Marcus didn't flinch. He walked right up to it and stared into those glowing slits, unblinking. Do you understand me? He asked. No response. You murdered my people. You slaughtered them like cattle, and you didn't even bother to clean up after yourself. Was that fun for you? The creature didn't move, but the glow in its eyes changed, not with fear. Something worse. Amusement. Marcus's hand twitched. He'd lost men before. He'd lost friends, comrades. But what they'd done on Serac, it wasn't war. It was butchery. Entire families melted in their beds, life support ripped offline, infants, scientists, medics, none spared, including his younger brother Simon. He clenched his jaw. We're not like the others. We're not going to kneel and beg for our lives. You made the mistake of assuming Earth was just another colony. He leaned in closer. You came to Serac to test our will. Now we're here to test yours. The Zarn gave a guttural hiss. Still no words, but again, amusement. Dr. Telford shook his head from outside the room. These things don't have language the way we do. Their communication is based on hive impulses, pack dominance. You're wasting your breath. No, Marcus replied calmly. I'm planting a seed. He turned away from the alien and left the room without another word, because the message wasn't for that one creature. It was for all of them. Later that evening, the War Council met in the command chamber. Marcus, Vela, Admiral Voss via HoloLink, and a few ranking fleet captains sat around the projection of the starfield. Latest scans show the Zarn have fully withdrawn from the Varro system, Vela reported, but we're detecting unusual warp signatures near the Takari Rift. Marcus nodded. That's where they'll regroup. It's the only place in this quadrant they've held for longer than a year. Their breeding nests are hidden there, deep in the nebula, protected. Which means, Admiral Voss said, flickering slightly through the hologram, they'll send reinforcements. Or worse. They'll retreat deeper and rebuild, Marcus added. Come back even stronger. The room fell silent. They won't stop, Marcus continued. They don't fear death. They don't value peace. They don't have culture, honor, or even greed. They exist to consume and expand. Serac wasn't a tragedy. It was a test run. What's your proposal? Voss asked. Marcus straightened. We finish it. We take the fight to their home territory. Hit their breeding grounds, their storage clusters. Not just their fleets, but their infrastructure. We wipe their memory of us with fire. An offensive operation inside the rift will cost ships, maybe a lot of them, Voss warned. Marcus didn't hesitate. We've lost more than ships already. It's time to make them feel it too. Silence followed. The entire fleet ignited. Beams, missiles, kinetic shells, all fired at once, turning the rift into a strobe of light and flame. Where Zarn flyers rushed in, human point defense cut them down. Auto turrets shredded anything within 100 meters of the main hulls. Drones deployed countermeasures, electromagnetic flares, decoys, radiation pulses. But still they kept coming. The Zarn weren't just attacking, they were defending. They're trying to block our advance, Vela said, eyes wide. They're not retreating, they're forming a wall. Marcus clenched his fists because what's behind them is worse. He knew it in his gut. This wasn't just another skirmish line. The Zarn were throwing everything at them like fanatics guarding a sacred temple. And humans weren't stopping. Not now, not after Serac. Captain, Greaves called. One of the recon drones picked something up, transmitting now. The projection on. The main display shifted. A massive biological structure loomed inside the rift, cocooned by gas and darkness. It looked like a moon-sized tumor, pulsing, alive, stitched together with tendrils of metallic bone. Around it were smaller nodes, ships being grown directly, from the hive forming like tumors on skin. It wasn't just a base, it was a womb. My God, Vela whispered. They're breeding a new fleet. Then we burn it down, Marcus said coldly. Sir, Greaves said hesitantly, that structure is massive. The heat signatures alone suggest it contains millions of Zarn, possibly civilians, if they even have a distinction. Marcus didn't respond right away. The silence weighed heavy. Then he spoke. So did Serac. No one argued after that. The assault began with coordinated fury. Every human capital ship focused fire on the central hive. Wave after wave of explosive payloads tore into its thick outer shell. The Zarn responded with renewed madness. More, swarms, bigger ships, suicide runs. Several corvettes were destroyed in minutes. One destroyer, the Iron Ray, was impaled mid-flight by a Zarn cruiser and detonated from within. But still the human fleet pushed deeper. Bring in the dreadnoughts, Marcus ordered. We're cracking that shell even if it kills every one of us. Massive railguns fired in synchronized bursts, punching straight into the hive's outer layers. Flesh-peeled, bone-cracked bioplasma spewed out in gouts. The rift itself seemed to scream. The hive tried to regenerate. Human missiles denied it the chance. Then something shifted. From the center of the hive, a new signal emerged, something no one had seen before. A ship, or maybe a creature, both. It was enormous, twice the size of any Zarn vessel recorded. Its body was plated in obsidian chitin, segmented like a centipede, and armed with weapons that bled light and sound. It moved like it was alive, twitching and groaning as it slid from the hive's core. The bridge fell silent. What is that? Vela whispered. Marcus narrowed his eyes. Their queen. It launched toward the fleet. 3 ships were vaporized instantly, torn apart by beams of green fire. The thing was a monster, a fortress with a soul, and that soul wanted blood. Marcus didn't hesitate. Divert all remaining power to weapons, lock on target and fire everything. The Vindicator roared to life, every weapon port screaming as 1,000 payloads launched toward the creature. The rest of the fleet followed. Even as they took hits, even as shields failed and holes ruptured. Humanity pushed back. They were outgunned, they were outnumbered, but they were human. And when humans decided they were done being prey, nothing in the galaxy could stop them. The Queen ship's outer shell cracked under sustained fire. A coordinated torpedo volley slammed into its midsection, rupturing it in a storm of molten bone and screaming fluid. It twisted, shrieked, lashed out with desperate strikes, but the fleet didn't slow. One final charge. The dreadnought hammer of Sol collided with the creature head-on, sacrificing itself in a blaze of nuclear fire. The explosion was blinding. The beast's back snapped, split open, and from its ruptured body poured flame, bile, and silence. It was dead. The Zarn fleet broke. Without the queenship coordinating their hive minds, the remaining enemy forces scattered, disorganized and wild. The human fleet tore them apart in 20 minutes. The battlefield was empty. The hive structure, once pulsating with evil life, now floated in silence. Cracked, blackened, dying. "Captain," Vela said, voice soft. "It's over." Marcus stared at the view. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from everything he'd held back. The grief, the rage, the guilt. He took a breath. "No," he said. "It's just beginning." She looked at him. "We just destroyed a civilization's heart." He turned to her, voice low. "Then let it be a warning." The Vindicator turned slowly from the remains of the hive. Behind them, fires burned in the void, and the rift finally fell silent. The rift had gone quiet, but the silence wasn't peace. It was aftermath. Wreckage floated everywhere, a chaotic ballet of twisted metal and scorched flesh. The remains of the Zarn hive drifted like a dying god's corpse, leaking bioplasma and shredded bone into the cosmic ether. What the human fleet had done wasn't a victory. It was a warning written in blood and ash. Inside the HFS Vindicator, the tension hadn't lifted. The crew moved mechanically, some bruised, some bloodied, but none broken yet. Something hung heavy. In the recycled air, something colder than space. Captain Marcus Ryland stood in the observation bay, hands clasped behind his back, eyes scanning what was left of the battlefield. Ships still burned out there. Drones continued collecting debris. Rescue shuttles flitted back and forth, gathering the wounded and tagging the dead. His own reflection stared back at him from the thick observation glass, drawn, pale, older. Then he remembered. Commander Vela joined him, silent for a moment before speaking. "Initial casualty reports just came in," she said, voice strained. "We lost 47 ships, nearly 8,000 crew." Marcus didn't look away. "And how many Zarn?" "Hard to say. The hive was breeding when we arrived. Conservatively, 2 million, maybe more." Silence. "And their queen?" he asked. "Confirmed dead. Whatever that thing was, it had command authority over the entire swarm. Once it fell, they scattered like feral beasts." Marcus gave a slow nod. "Then we did our job." "Did we?" she asked carefully. He turned toward her. She didn't flinch, but the question hung between them. "We wiped out an entire generation of their kind," she said. What if this wasn't a victory? What if we just created a power vacuum we can't control?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "Then we deal with it like we always do." She didn't argue, but she didn't agree either. He looked back out the window. "Vela?" "I don't regret what we did," he said quietly. "They turned Serac into a tomb. They made it clear they don't understand diplomacy. That kind of enemy only understands pain. And we gave it to them," she said. "But pain spreads, Marcus. It lingers." He didn't respond, not because she was wrong, but because she was right. The days after the battle were filled with silence, repairs, and bodies. The Vindicator was docked with the fleet's mobile repair vessel, Forge Breaker, while engineering crews patched hull breaches and rerouted damaged systems. Medical bays overflowed. The smell of antiseptic and scorched wiring filled every corridor. In the hangar, Marcus watched as a line of body bags was lowered into a sealed transport pod. Each bag was tagged with a name, rank, home world. Some were just labeled unknown. Simon's face flickered in his mind. The kid had never even held a rifle, and yet in a way he was one of the first casualties of this war. Marcus clenched his fists. The weight of command didn't feel like pride. It felt like guilt wrapped in steel. The lives he'd avenged came at the cost of others. Good soldiers, young officers, promising cadets, people who believed in him. And now they were ashes in the soul. Stars. Captain. A voice called from behind. Dr. Kean Telford approached, looking unusually tense. The exobiologist rarely left the science wing unless something was on fire, or worse. Interesting, he said. We have a situation. Marcus arched a brow. Go on. We've been studying the biological remains of the Queen ship, Telford said. What's left of it anyway? And well, it's not dead. Marcus blinked. What? Biologically, it ceased function, the doctor said quickly. But its neural tissue is still firing, weak but active, like it's in hibernation, or communicating remotely. Marcus's stomach turned. Communicating with what? That's the problem. We're detecting low-frequency pulses, subspace level, but rhythmic, not random. It's like a distress signal or a warning. Are they receiving it? Telford shook his head. Nothing's come back yet. But if the signal's reaching deep space, Marcus didn't need the rest explained. They hadn't destroyed the hive. They'd alerted it. Later that night, Marcus sat alone in his quarters, staring at Simon's old holovid again. It was just 20 seconds of footage, his brother laughing, standing barefoot in Sarak's greenhouse, holding a tomato like it was the rarest artifact in the galaxy. You know what the stars need more of? Simon had said, grinning. Tomatoes. Marcus had watched it over 100 times since the colony fell. He closed the file. If another wave of Zarn was out there, if another queen or greater hive answered, the signal, Earth wouldn't survive a second war. The fleet was damaged, supplies were running thin, morale was shattered. He had one chance, one move left, and it would break every rule left in the books. The Emergency War Council convened the IGA following morning. Admiral Voss appeared via HoloLink, face etched with concern. Several fleet commanders joined in, along with Dr. Telford and a few AI advisors. We confirmed the distress signal, Vela explained. It's consistent with previous Zarn communication patterns. The Queen ship may have functioned as a relay hub, transmitting a final burst as it died. Could another hive respond? One commander asked. Telford nodded grimly. If there is another, the Zarn aren't like us. They don't have borders. Their empire may not be visible on star charts, but they're out there. Voss looked to Marcus. Captain Ryland, you proposed a contingency. Marcus stood. Yes, sir. I call it Operation Blackout. The room quieted. The idea is simple, Marcus continued. We can't outrun them. We can't hide. But if they're coming, we can delay them, distract them. We send a stealth ship beyond the rift, deep into Zarn-controlled space. We find whatever remnants of their network still function, and we destroy it completely. Suicide mission, Voss muttered. I'll lead it myself, Marcus said. Vela turned sharply. Marcus, no. He didn't look at her. I started this, he said. I turned a counter-strike into annihilation. If there's a consequence, it should fall on me. But you don't know what's out there, Vela snapped. You'll vanish into enemy territory with no support, no reinforcements, and no extraction plan. That's war. Not when you don't come back. Voss cleared his throat. Enough. Ryland, I don't like it, but I see your logic. If another hive is out, there, Earth won't survive. We can't afford to wait. He sighed. You have clearance. Pick your ship. Pick your crew. You leave in 72 hours. The HoloLink shut off. Marcus turned to Vela. I want you to command the Vindicator in my absence, he said. Her jaw clenched. You really think I'm letting you fly off and die alone? I'm not asking, he said softly. I don't care. She stared him down. And he knew then, no matter what ship he chose, she'd be on it. Because some bonds are stronger than war. The ship they chose was a ghost. The Spectre, an experimental stealth corvette black as a moonless void, built to hide from even the sharpest sensors. No identifying beacons, no emission trails. It moved, like a shadow, and hit like a ghost. Marcus stood at the airlock watching the last of the supplies being loaded. Engineers made their final checks, pilots secured flight paths. Dr. Telford approached, data pad in hand. "Coordinates are set," he said. "We've triangulated 5 possible hive remnants in deep space. We'll hit the closest one first." Marcus nodded. "And if it's active?" Telford gave a dry smile. "Then we hope its queen bleeds like the last one." Vela stepped beside Marcus. She said nothing, just stared into the distance, jaw tight, eyes distant. "You sure about this?" he asked her. "No," she said, "but I'm not leaving you." Marcus almost smiled. Almost. Then the Spectre's engines lit, a soft barely audible, and just like that they were gone, vanishing into the dark, chasing the echo of a dying monster, hoping to stop the next one before it roared back to life. The Spectre moved through space like a ghost, silent, undetectable, unseen. Its hull, layered in adaptive armor and electromagnetic masking systems, blended into the void. It gave off no heat, no signal, not even a whisper. From the outside, it may as well not have existed. And that was the point. Captain Marcus Ryland sat at the forward observation post, his eyes locked on the starless expanse before them. The ship's path curved toward deep Zarn territory, a stretch of space so devoid of charted movement it had been labeled the Hollow Veil. It was a place no human had entered, a place from which no signal had ever returned. Beside him, Commander Vela worked silently, reviewing the pulse scans from their last recon sweep. Though nothing had appeared, visually she could feel it. Something was out there, watching, waiting. "Still nothing?" Marcus asked. She shook her head. "No movement, no transmissions, no heat signatures. But the ambient radiation levels are weird." "How weird?" "Like something's absorbing them." That made Marcus's spine twitch. "Could be a cloaking system, biological maybe, or artificial." "A bigger hive," she said. "Something that doesn't want to be found." Marcus leaned back. "Too bad we're here to find it." He turned towards the rear of the bridge. "Dr. Telford, what's your analysis?" Telford sat hunched over a data console, his eyes strained and dark-ringed from lack of sleep. "We've been tracking the subspace pulses," the scientist said. "Same signature from the Queen's neural net, faint but consistent, like breadcrumbs. And where do they lead?" Telford zoomed the holomap. A small star system lit up, completely off any established chart. No colonies, no survey logs, not even a name. "This one," he said. "A dead system. Barren. But I'm detecting faint gravitational anomalies." Meaning? "Meaning something big is parked in there. Mass displacement in orbit. Too massive for a natural body. It's either a planet-sized ship or something even worse." Marcus stared at the blinking red light on the map. "Then that's where we go." 12 hours later, the Spectre arrived at the edge of the system. Everything about the place felt wrong. The star was dim, dying, maybe already dead, and the planets were husks. No atmospheres, no tectonic activity, just dead rock spinning in silence. Except one. The third planet didn't rotate. It hung suspended, perfectly still, as if anchored in place. And in orbit around it, barely detectable, even to the Spectre's advanced sensors, was something vast. A structure, a construct, a web. "Jesus," Vela whispered. "It's not a ship, it's a lattice. Hundreds, maybe thousands of Zarn vessels, all interconnected by tendrils of bone and sinew, stretched across the orbital plane like a cocoon around the planet. Energy pulses flickered between them, green, rhythmic, alive. They weren't separate ships, they were one entity." Telford paled. "That's not a hive. That's a gestation cradle." Marcus's voice was a whisper. "They're building something." "Growing it," Vela said. "Or breeding it." Inside that cradle, the sensors finally picked up movement. A central mass suspended in the heart of the web, pulsing with light. The signal, They'd followed the same neural frequency from the dead queen originated from that core. It wasn't a signal of distress. It was a beacon, and it had worked. Multiple warp signatures inbound, Vela reported. Dozens, maybe hundreds, from deep space. They're answering the call. Then we're too late, Marcus said. Telford frowned. Or just in time to kill them all. The Spectre couldn't go in guns blazing. It wasn't built for combat. It was a knife, not a hammer. But it had one advantage: stealth. The plan was suicidal, even by Marcus's standards. But they'd come this far, and Earth's survival hung on what they did next. They would infiltrate the lattice. They would plant a singularity bomb at the core, and they would destroy the cradle before it hatched. Marcus gathered his strike team in the drop, 10 in total, elite operators trained for silent infiltration, zero-gravity operations, and worst-case scenarios. Vela stood among them, suited in matte black armor, helmet off, expression unreadable. "This is a one-way run," Marcus said, voice calm. "We're not walking away from this. If we succeed, Earth survives. If we fail, no one will ever know." Silence. No one flinched. We drop in silent. No thrusters, magnetic boots only. Target the core chamber. Plant the device. Get out if you can. If not, he paused. Then we make sure it's the last thing we ever do. They nodded. He met Vela's eyes one last time. "You don't have to come," she said. She didn't even respond. The bay doors opened, revealing the endless black. They jumped. The cradle was alive. The moment they drifted close, they could feel it, like being inside a lung the size of a planet. The webbing pulsed, structures throbbed. Veins the size of highways carried bioplasma through fleshy conduits. Ships formed and hatched and floated outward like insects from a hive, and yet they weren't detected, not yet. The team moved in silence, landing on one of the outer vessels and magnet climbing their way inward. Inside the cradle, gravity was inconsistent. Lights blinked with no pattern. Alien structures rose like tumors, living, breathing, growing. Vela broke radio silence. "Chamber dead ahead. That's where the pulses are strongest." Marcus checked the scanner. "All right. Telford, how long to arm the device once we're inside?" 5 minutes. Let's make them count." They entered through a ruptured air sac, and emerged into the core chamber. What they found made even the hardened soldiers freeze. A creature, unborn but massive, floated in a tank of glowing green. 10 times the size of the queenship they'd destroyed. Its limbs were still forming, bones stretching from shifting tissue. Its brain, clearly visible through a translucent skull, was active, scanning, calculating. It was aware, and it was waiting to be born. Telford whispered, "If this thing hatches, it's not just another queen. It's something else, a new evolution." Marcus pointed. "There, center of the chamber. That's where the payload goes." They moved fast. The device was unpacked, armed, placed against the pulsating heart of the chamber. Then it happened. The creature opened its eyes and screamed. Every ship in the cradle lit up. The pulse spread instantly through the web, through the air, through the void. Sirens erupted. Doors slammed shut. Fluid sprayed from walls. Alarms in a language they didn't understand shrieked from every surface. They had been discovered. Contact. "Incoming!" Vela yelled. "Thousands!" Marcus turned to Telford. "Now!" The scientist slammed the activation node. The singularity bomb began counting down. 2 minutes, that was all they had. Marcus turned to the team. "Fall back. Get to the Spectre." They ran through corridors of flesh, up ladders of bone, dodging tentacles and spines and walls that moved, like muscle. Behind them the hive roared. Drones poured in, spindly, fast, screaming in pulses. One of their squad, Hughes, was caught mid-climb, torn in half. No time to stop. The Spectre loomed ahead, cloaked but waiting. They launched grapples. One by one they flew toward the hull, boots slamming onto the airlock. Then Marcus turned. Vela wasn't there. Vela. A tentacle had wrapped her leg, dragging her back towards the womb. She fired her rifle blindly, cutting through the flesh, but not enough. Marcus didn't hesitate. He leaped from the ship, slammed into her attacker, and severed the limb with his sidearm blade. She fell limp. He caught her. 1 minute left, they flew, the airlock sealed. The Spectre jumped. Behind them, the singularity bomb detonated. There was no explosion, just silence, and then collapse. The cradle folded in on itself. Space twisted, ships shattered, the womb imploded. Light disappeared into nothing. And then, there was only dust. The Spectre drifted beyond the starless system, hidden in a shadow, watching the stars return to their natural order. Hours later, Vela lay in med bay, eyes slowly opening. Marcus sat beside her, bruised, bloodied, but alive. "You came back," she murmured. He gave a tired smile. "I always do." She reached out, gripping his hand. "You stopped it," she whispered. "You really did." He looked out the small window toward the wreckage still floating in space. "For now," he said, "but not forever." He didn't answer because he knew. Out there in the void, there were other hives, other cradles, other nightmares waiting to be born. But today, Earth had survived. And as long as he drew breath, Marcus Ryland would make damn sure it stayed that way.